Hey, what's the deal, YouTube? It's your girl, Miss Honey. Welcome back to the channel, you guys. It is your girl, Miss Honey, here with another Real Housewives of Potomac review. This is season 5, episode 13, No Shows and Showdowns. We are going to do this a little bit differently. I feel like we're kind of in this rut as it pertains to Real Housewives of Potomac. As you guys know, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and so what we're seeing from a lot of these shows is this sort of extended version of the seasons in order to prolong the seasons and just give us a little bit more content as they try to roll out each show for the rest of 2020. So, we have a lot of filler episodes. We have a lot of episodes, multiple episodes, which could have been actually one episode. But because we're trying to draw this thing out, we are painstakingly crawling through this season 5. And I do mean painstakingly because we're still in this place where we're doing a lot of conversation about the Monique Candace situation, as opposed to really getting to know each and every one of these ladies on a personal and professional level. Well, with the exception of, I would say, Wendy is giving us personal and she's giving us some professional, moments. And we are definitely getting it from Monique's end. We are getting, a lot about her personally as well as professionally and being a mom and so on and so forth. So with that being said, we are going to talk about what we learned in this episode. I think it's valuable because we can go on chewing on the obvious things, those things that are given. What is the saying? That which is understood needs no understanding. We can go on and just continue to chew on these things, but we've already chewed on them. We've already digested, and some of us continue to regurgitate and then eat again off of these same measly bones. But I thought, for a change of pace, let's talk about what we learned in this episode. What have we learned from each of these ladies? I'm going to give my opinion as to what I learned. I would love to hear from you guys down below what it is you all have learned in this episode. What have you learned about our characters here, our ladies, from a personal or professional perspective? What have you learned? What have you gained? Additionally, so let's talk about Monique. Monique we get a chance to look into finally her event, Not for Lazy Moms podcast event is in place. Monique does a really, really great job at setting up, at event planning and throwing a good party. So we don't really expect anything less from Monique here. We get to see where she has met with her kid's godfather, and he's come down to help her, put together some last minute things for this event. And true Monique fashion, she does an excellent job with just the little details. She's putting together gift bags and that type of thing. It has not been a sellout event for her. But what we learned from Monique here is about, this perseverance that she has as it pertains to her business. She has a lot of tenacity. We learned in the first season with Monique that she manages quite a few of she and Chris's businesses, rental properties, and that type of thing. We always get to see Monique going above and beyond as a mom and as a wife. And so here on this professional level, we really just don't expect anything less. She does a stellar job of I think, being authentic, in terms of what she's working on, who she is as a mom, who she is as a wife. We learned that Monique does have tenacity and she has humility. For her to, that moment on camera, to call the ladies and, just take hit after hit after hit of them not only just instead of them just declining and say they can't come, it is more about, let me chastise you and put you through the ringer and tell you no all at the same time. But she sort of takes it on the chin, and I don't know. I'm looking for something to be disappointed in Monique about outside of the physical altercation, how she has moved in terms of recovery. I commend her for it. I just do. I commend her for being honest about not having remorse. I commend her for being honest on camera about, having all of these external pressures and the fact that it wasn't necessarily Candace. It was these pressures that led her to this, to act out in this physical way. And, Candace didn't deserve that. And, all she can do is say, I'm sorry and move on, So for me, I really learned a lot about just, picking up putting your big girl panties on and moving forward, especially when you know that the business doesn't stop. Being a mom doesn't stop. You being a wife doesn't stop. Monique has done a great job in just plowing ahead, but still giving us content. We are not staying in this place where we are continually bemoaning what she did. And, I give that, I give it up to Monique. She got some, crazy news when Ashley came to her event, and Ashley was the only one that came to her event. She invited Karen, but Karen, was ill that morning and decided that she wasn't going to be able to come. And she texted Monique and let Monique know she wasn't going to be able to come. And she was disappointed by that. Monique was, but later on at the event, right before the event, she learns from Ashley that Karen had expressed to Candace that if it was her in the same position with Monique, she would, pursue it legally. And so it was a little, off-putting for Monique, but she was able to forge ahead. They didn't show the whole event. They just showed someone asking a question about her and Candace's relationship and her saying, pray for us. And but I did get to see the entire podcast, and Monique did an excellent job. She had great speakers. Chris was there. That was, of course, wonderful. Chris and Monique do an excellent job writing for each other. So my MVP for this episode is going to be Monique, because I just feel like I learned a lot from her. I gained something from the situation. And so this episode and her conversations in this episode. So yeah, Giselle, it looks like she's picking Jamal up from an event for one of her children. I'm not sure if she also attended that event and she just went to get the car, but it looks like she's picking him up and taking him to the airport. And we get to see this. It wasn't a very long scene, but it seemed long because Giselle did the bulk of the conversation, the talk. Even in this conversation, it wasn't necessarily in depth and in detailed. It was more about her sort of bantering on in this hintish sort of way that she wanted to be more than just what she and Jamal are, which is this long distance pseudo couple. And he doesn't really have a lot to say. When he does finally speak, he says that he had no idea. This is how she felt. She had expressed she wanted, to be her own independent self. And now that he hears her say that she wants more, he does acknowledge that he had just been waiting on her all this time, and everything is cool and copacetic. He gives her a light kiss on the cheek like you would do your mom if you were dropping your mom off at the airport. And, he goes on about his way. And earlier on, we saw where she met with Juan to pick out a ring for Robin. And, she talks about how Jamal was going to be down that following week or that later that week. And it was touted in that moment as though they were going to be spending time together. But we have not really seen them spend time together and interact. It has been very, very, very conservatively shown the relationship between Jamal and Giselle. And so it's no surprise that everyone, including myself, feels as though this is a made up storyline, that this isn't necessarily a real relationship. But what we learned from this moment with Giselle and Jamal is that Giselle is great at expressing herself clearly to everyone about their business, both personal and otherwise. But according to Jamal, until that ride to the airport, he had no idea what her feelings were. He had no idea what her concerns were. He had no idea what her apprehensions were, or what her limitations were, or her boundaries were, or, her breaking point is. He had no idea until this moment. So we learned that, she doesn't requiring everyone else to meet a standard, but as it pertains to this relationship with she and Jamal, which is, outside of her relationship with her children, should be the most important thing on her mind. But yeah, so that is Giselle. Let's go ahead and talk about Robin. What we learn in this episode with Robin is, we don't get a lot from Robin. Robin is, pushing this business of hers. I've embellished is the name of the business. Her son is recording her. Her oldest son is recording her. And it's just this brief little snippet of shenanigans between her and her sons. We never get to see Robin, take her sons like to the museum, or take them to places where they can be mentored and they can learn. We never see these moments from Robin or Juan. We rarely ever see Juan. We never get to see these moments. We get to see, bowling. We get to see her in the stands at Juan's games where he's coaching. We never really get to see them be parentals. We never get to see them teaching and raising and rearing their children. It's a little one-dimensional, this whole situation with Robin and Juan. What we learned from Robin this episode is she goes to, she has this apprehension about talking to her parents, because her parents are, obviously she wants to tell them about this whole tax situation. They were disappointed with the initial financial trouble that Juan and Robin found themselves in before they divorced. And that was the fact that they had lost their entire life savings to a man that Robin trusted. And so now she's has a lot of anxiety about talking with them about this tax issue, because it's like, here we go again. And she's just hoping that they'll be forgiving and they'll be understanding. So what we learned in this episode is that Robin hopes and expects forgiveness and understanding for her repeated mistakes, but refuses to offer that same forgiveness or understanding to Monique. In the Monique situation, she is continuing to ride for the Candace side. Not that she shouldn't ride for the Candace side, but what we're talking about here is fair and balanced. And when we talk about wanting understanding, and when we talk about wanting forgiveness, that which we hope to receive, we must first become. So the Bible says if you want friendship, you must first show yourself to be friendly. So I am just confused as to why, she is, anxious and trepidatious about getting this forgiveness and getting this understanding and this, all of these things from her parents and from others as it pertains to a repeated mistake. This is a repeated financial mistake. She is repeatedly bad with the money. I'm not really sure why she's always the only one dealing with the money, but okay, that's fine. But she's not willing to offer those things as well, the forgiveness and the understanding. We also learned that Juan has about 8 to $10,000 to put towards a ring to ask Monique for her hand in marriage, but he does not have $8,000 to $10,000 to put towards that debt. Like, this whole moment is like a whole teachable moment, I guess, for African Americans as a whole, because we are thought of as individuals that put our money towards things that doesn't necessarily appreciate, but we don't put our money towards things that grow us financially, that is beneficial for us financially. For me, you guys have gone this long with this, we're divorced, but we're together relationship. Go that much further down the line, a year or two, and get this tax thing off the way. Like, make yourself completely whole financially so that you can move. Your boys are getting older and they're getting bigger and they're more rambunctious. You guys want to build this home, this nest, and first there must be foundation. So if you're taking the money that should be going into that foundation and you're putting it on her finger, it just doesn't seem smart. It doesn't seem smart. Again, I mean, it's your 8 to 10 grand. If you rather put it towards a purchase that may or may not yield some appreciative value down the road at some, I don't know, resale, whatever, as opposed to putting it towards building a foundation for this second leg of your relationship, this second marriage, second home, third home, whatever. It seems a little ridiculous. What are we learning from Candace? Candace is still just so broken and torn and just she just cannot seem to get herself together. It's not even a day-to-day situation at this point. It's hour by hour. She's saying that, she just has to take it hour by hour, just if she's okay or not. She is managing to show up to all of the events. She looks, very pressed and very well put together. She's managing those things nicely. But what we learned in this episode 13 is that she's determined to stay in a place of victimhood. And she insists on requiring everyone around her, all of the ladies, to join her there. She insists upon it. Like, it is a requirement at this point that I am taking it hour by hour, and I want you ladies to take it hour by hour. I want complete and utter solidarity. And you don't have to worry about my accountability. You don't have to worry about me taking some part of the responsibility in the situation. That is a non-negotiable. That is a conversation we will not have, but we will have your utter and complete allegiance. We get to see Wendy. Wendy is going to have a wine with Wednesday, and this is supposed to be this whole empowerment situation. She is supposed to be talking to the ladies about the upcoming 2020 election. This is, I think, predominantly African-American women that she's invited to this event. All of the ladies, with the exception of Monique, who was not invited, came. And we learned something very valuable here. And if you watch Beautiful Soul Speaks or Really Be TV, I've said it myself. If you're on any of these lives, we are all sort of echoing the same sentiment that Wendy shares at this event, in that it's not just about the White House. It is about voting locally, voting for your DAs, your school boards, in your local counties, as it pertains to your state, that type of thing. Those elections, those primaries, those runoffs are key. This is something that she expressed. She had the ladies ask questions. A lot of the ladies from the audience asked some very, very viable questions. We didn't get to see any of the ladies from the Real Housewives of Potomac show ask any pertinent questions. And I wonder if that would have been different had Monique been there. Monique is a businesswoman. She is a wife. She is a mom. She is a professional. And I'm almost sure she would have had some weigh in the situation. I'm almost sure she would have had an intelligent question asked. But hey, we'll never know now, will we? So, for this episode, you guys, I don't know if you are up on the whole Wendy Osefo situation about her being Osu and being a victim of this whole caste system where the Osu tribe, which is, I think the tribe she hails from, is supposed to be considered cursed. And we got to see a little bit about it last week, but it wasn't talked about in that perspective. It was more talked about the fact that her husband's family doesn't approve of her or her mom. And so therefore they have shunned and snubbed and casted out her husband and consequently her, as well as all three of her children. Okay. She doesn't expound upon it. We talk about it. We touch on it, just very, very lightly, but it's pulled apart a lot more in the blogs and, social media as opposed to the show. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a missed opportunity, especially with everything that's going on in Nigeria right now. It's a missed opportunity. But what we learn from Wendy in this episode is that, terms like women's empowerment and use your voice is only her clarion call as it pertains to her agenda. When it comes to something that doesn't pertain to her agenda or something that she doesn't agree with the exception of this whole in-laws snubbing and casting you out, she is determined to overtalk and dominate the conversation. If it is about Monique, when Ashley brings it up at the table or she comes in on the conversation and that the ladies are talking about the whole situation, they're all sort of chastising Ashley for having her own opinion and having decided that she is not going to just discard Monique. She overtalks and she dominates. So Ashley is not allowed in this moment to be empowered and speaking her own truth and having her own opinion. She's not allowed to use her voice. Every sentence that she starts is interrupted by Wendy, and Wendy's own opinion is inserted in there. So she dominates it. It's not about Ashley being empowered. It's not about her having her own opinion. It is about forcing her to believe as Wendy believes. We don't get to see this same demonstrative behavior or conversation as it pertains to her in-laws. We don't get to see this same outrage in terms of her own culture, her Nigerian culture and what's happening there. It didn't just start happening. This unrest has been brewing now for quite some time, but we don't get to hear that. It's for me, it's just very, very telling. You guys let me know. Do you agree? Later on, we get to see where she goes downstairs and inserts herself in this private conversation that Karen is having with Candace, and she does the same thing to Karen. She is requiring Karen to meet her own personal standard. And when Karen does not do that, she overtalks her, she dominates the conversation, and she once again becomes sort of verbally aggressive about a situation that really has nothing to do with her. Absolutely nothing to do with her. You know what I mean? And we get to see her on the phone, sort of chastise Monique about her level of remorse and how she feels it doesn't meet her standard. It's oxymoronic, and hypocritical. in my opinion. But, yeah, that's what we learned from Wendy. Let's talk about Karen. I enjoyed Karen in this episode, and I'll tell you, I learned something valuable from Karen here. And I will say this, as it pertains to Ashley, I will say what I learned from Ashley and what I learned from Karen are identical. We don't get to see a lot of personal interaction with Ashley and her family. We do just get to see her go to these couple of events. And we get to hear this conversation that she has at both Monique's and Wendy's event. But Karen and Ashley alike are very good at straddling. They're very, very good at walking this fine line, in my opinion. And they both are very, very good at verbal spin. When we get to see Karen this episode, we do get to see a little bit more personal side of her. We get to see her go and have conversations with a young woman, a very, very beautiful young woman, very pulled together, very poised individual, because Ray is opposed to therapy. But this is a form, I guess, of therapy or life coaching, that type of thing. And we learn in this moment that Ray has never said thank you, according to Karen, for everything that she's done in terms of helping him rebuild after this whole tax situation. It's weird to me because to me, like with Juan and with Robin, her tax issue is your tax issue. And maybe it's different with Juan and Robin because they're not legally married, but just to hear him last episode verbally say, this is your issue. And then we see him take, 8 to 10 grand and put it towards the ring, as of putting it towards this debt that is going to hold you guys both back, keep you guys from both being progressive in the relationship. It's odd because to me, when you commit to someone, especially in marriage, then their debt is your debt. If you married this guy and he had outstanding child support issues, the money that you bring into the household could possibly go towards those issues and financial issues. So it just stands to reason, if your husband is in some financial trouble and you have the means to help him, then that's what you would do. And it's not like this loan. But Karen doesn't speak of it in that way. But I think what her point was, at least acknowledge that I not only raised and reared your children, but I also took care of the household. I took care of you. And when you needed something financially, I had the means and the wherewithal to help you. And that is what I did. And the very least you can do is acknowledge that by saying thank you, as opposed to telling me all of the things that I am not doing for you, as opposed to telling me how I didn't get your coffee this morning on time. Can we talk a little bit more in depth? So, and Ray goes along in this conversation as if he is the heavy. He acknowledges it and he says, thank you. I think it could have been expounded upon a little bit more, but that might have to do with age. Keep it simple, stupid. A lot of older people, respond in the kiss method. That is, keep it simple, stupid. So he just quite simply said, thank you. And that was that. It's a telling moment. I said before last week that they demographically are just in sort of this sunrise sunset type situation between the two of them, and that needs to be acknowledged, even as it pertains to Michael and Ashley. Like, you're going to get to this place where he's going to, the older person is probably going to be in more of a sunrise type level, and a sunset type level, and you as the younger will maybe be at more of a sunrise type level, where you're moving on to that next level, and that next level, and that next level you haven't quite reached that place where your sun is going down. And so it needs to be acknowledged for sure. But I think it says a lot. I think it says a lot about the expectation of the female. The expectation is that you are supposed to have these 8 arms and 8 legs. And I reference that because Monique's Not for Lazy Mom logo is this woman who has all of these arms and she's juggling all of these jobs, you know. And that's the expectation of a lot of women and in their marriages. It's like all of these things are what make me happy and what make me great as a man, but I don't need to know all the finite details. I don't need to acknowledge how you got the boulder up the hill. My concern is just that the boulder is up the hill. You know what I mean? And it's just a shame. It's just a shame that he's in a place where he's not as busy. He's retired now, his 3rd retirement. He says that. But even in the fact that you're not that busy, you can't support her. Even in the fact that you're at a place where you can travel with her and you guys can go to these different cities and do these pop-ups and do these shows and HSN or whatever it is that she's doing with her Ladom fragrance. But you can't even go along like Greg does with Nene. He was the breadwinner for most of their relationship. And now I think whatever Nene is doing is bringing in the bulk of the money. And he's more like her assistant. You know, maybe that's, something that's kind of emasculating to a lot of older men. But I think it's the perfect setup. For you to continue to grow your family, but with a different dynamic. Anyway, also we get to see where Candace pulls Karen aside, and they have this hard conversation about Candace's expectation that Karen will definitively be on her side. And again, I said it before, I'll say it again. Karen does a mediocre job of straddling in that she is being caught saying one thing to Candace and another thing being suspect as it pertains to her support of Monique, or it looks that way on camera, right? But when you talk to her, she does a good job of the verbal spin. Like I said before, she and Ashley have this in common. They do an excellent job of verbally spinning the situation. The way she explained herself, which explains that she supported Candace when Candace's behavior was bad, and she intends to support Monique. She expresses that she told Monique that she was wrong, but she is going to continue to support her. This is what she's telling Candace. And then later when Wendy comes down and is being extremely demonstrative with her and over talking and just being really pushy verbally, she stands her ground that much more and says, no one's going to put words in my mouth and make me say something that I don't feel. I just question if this is how you really feel. Is this the consistent language that you are using in each and every conversation that you have, whether it be with Candace or Monique or with Ashley or with Giselle or with Bob or Lisa or Jack or John or Jill? Like, it needs to be consistent in order to be authentic, Karen. Tell me what you guys think. What did you learn from each of these ladies? Did you learn anything? Have you learned anything from the Giselle Jamal whole web of whatever that is that they're trying to weave? Have we learned anything from Robin? Motherhood, on professionalism, as it pertains to her being a mate? Have we learned anything? Have we garnered anything at all? What about Wendy? Have you guys learned anything from Wendy? But what have you guys learned? I also learned that, it is important to not just raise your voice, but to improve your argument. and that's something I've learned from Wendy. You know what I'm saying? You could be the loudest thing in the room, but if what you're saying doesn't make any sense or it is not well received because of the presentation, you might have a problem. What have you guys learned from Monique? What about the Ashley? I know for me, through this season, I've learned, hey, listen, you got to take those lemons and make lemonade. That's something I really learned from Ashley. I don't know what I've learned from Candace outside of those negative things that I spoke of. This expectation that you be everything that I want you to be. It's my way or no way, or my way or the highway. But you guys tell me what you learned from Candace. And Giselle and Robin and Karen and Ashley and Monique and Wendy. That is it for me, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this review for Real Housewives of Potomac, episode 13, season 5, no shows and showdowns. What did you learn? Until next time, honeybees. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Ah, holla.